that's one of the things that I think, is unique about, well, in terms of your evolution of your strategies, you are constantly looking to improve them. So like, for instance, like in your first version of What Works on Wall Street, obviously you use price to sales as the key valuation metric, value metric. And over time that's evolved to more of a value composite type of approach. So can you just talk through the process that you go through as a firm? And obviously you had strategies that use price to sales and you migrated to the value composite. So how you guys approach introducing new factors or changing those factors or evolving your quantitative investment strategies over time, and how that actually works through the portfolio construction processes, as best you can.
Sure, of course. We're always learning. We're always thinking and watching and trying to come up with new ways to measure various outcomes, right? So let's use price to sales and value composite. So originally, and that's also in my paper, Mistakes Were Made, and yes, by me, I naively said, well, gosh, through 1993, I think is where the original What Works data ended. Price to sales just kills everything else. Well, had I even thought about it for a second, I would have said, well, wait a minute. Yeah, for the period ending 1993, that's true, but we need to base rate these things. We need to look at portfolios that start in January and February and March and April. And of course, you saw that in the next editions of What Works. And when we do that, right, we see that it's sensitive, very sensitive to when you start, right? So one start date will have price to sales as the king, another will have EBITDA to enterprise value, yet another will have price to earnings, etc. That's where we got the idea for, hey, why don't we put them all together and see if that works better? We found that it worked a lot better for both logical reasons. We're covering all parts of the balance sheet now, whereas price to sales was just looking at revenues. Got you into low margin businesses often, right? Where price to sales were very low. Now we cover the entire balance sheet, and the efficacy of the composite is better than any of the single value ratios alone. But I think that the process is, we understand we don't know everything, right? There is not, we can't go, okay, we're done. We've learned everything there is to know about investing, and now we're just going to let it ride. That's very foolish, because what you're saying is that you're smarter than every other human being on the planet, and that just ain't so. And so one of the things when you're looking at managers, especially systematic managers, what you should look for is the size of their research graveyard. What's that mean? It means everything that they looked at but didn't end up using, okay? We've got a huge graveyard, right? And there's several mausoleums in there. Price to book has its own mausoleum, for example. And so the idea that you're ever done finding ways to evolve a strategy, I think is wrong. I think that what we spend all of our time doing is making sure the data is, a lot of what we do also, just a brief digression, is really boring, right? So we do an enormous amount of data scrubbing. What's that mean? It means how accurate is the data that we're actually using? A lot of people don't just take it as given that, if it's coming from this service or that service, the data is fine. Sorry, that's very, very wrong. So we do multiple data scrubs. We compare multiple numbers across vendors, et cetera, to make sure that we're getting very clean data. First off, very dull, very workmanlike, but it makes a big, big difference. But then you also got to start thinking about things like, well, price to book, good example. Price to book has this great illustrious history, but all of a sudden, it's really something that worked very well for industrial style companies. But our companies today, most of the value that they have is in brand, is in intangibles, right? So would price to book be the best way to price Nike? I don't think so. And we have, as shouldn't surprise you, we have a paper on that and a podcast. So we are continually updating our observations, our learning, and, has anything changed to the point where you need to take a hard look? Sometimes things do change, right? An antiquated value ratio, price to book, worked great for certain types of companies, works a lot less well for companies that have a lot of intangibles and a lot of value tied to brand. Apple, another example. So what you'll see if you look at, and if you're a real nerd, we'll show it to you. We have a timeline for our various strategies, right? And we show how they evolved. What you won't see is you won't see us saying, oh, systematic investing doesn't work. What you won't see us saying is pay no attention to valuation. You can buy whatever you want to buy, because those are foundational beliefs, right?